Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Kieran and I help people using a spiritual perspective. Now, today's video is inspired by a quite impressive feat that I managed to accomplish, which is losing 3 women in one day. That's a very, very impressive thing. Could put it on a resume. Not sure how it translates into jobs, but it seems like a skill that's worth mentioning. Not exactly sure. So essentially, it's kind of it makes me sound like a terrible person, actually. Don't know if that is something you want to put on a resume, but it is important to the context of this video. But we'll kind of get into that, I think, a little bit on, because the point of this video is how to know when a relationship is over, how to know when it's time to throw in the white flag or get the fuck out of there, putting it more bluntly. And there's no specific way of looking at a relationship. It could be romantic, it could be platonic, it could be, you could even extract more information from this and apply it to jobs or even situations in your life for really when to know that it's over, right? Of course, most people refer to relationships in a romantic sense, and that's fine. You can apply that if you want to. I can't control your interpretation of things. I can only control how I talk, and even then I can't really control that, because it's just nonsense, really, that comes out. But in any case, the thing that you could point to, you could talk about practical things. There's certainly real things, like if you're being abused, sexually assaulted, hit, cursed at, manipulated. Okay, there's lots of very severe cases. Please get out of your relationship. If they're wearing socks and sandals, you should probably leave that relationship as well. Somewhere between being beaten and socks and sandals, I feel like you guys should get out of that. But anyway, there's those kinds of things. There's also, maybe emotional and practical reasons as well. You don't like them anymore, this kind of stuff. But there's not really like a one thing, right? There's not really one thing that should say, okay, well, yeah, this means that I'm not going to date them anymore, or be their friend or something like that. It's really all about how it fits into certain categories. Okay, and so you kind of have to look at things as the opposite. Okay, so for me personally, I want to find somebody that fits the 4 criteria, the 4 layers, the 4 modes of being. Okay, so basically physical, emotional, spiritual, and mental, right? If you can line up a relationship, a friendship with those 4 things, you found somebody that you can realistically grow with and be happy with, right? Because they're not necessarily the same things. You can grow with people that you won't really be happy with. You can be happy with people that you won't grow with, and there's lots of variations of that sort of thing. So, for example, I was in a relationship for 6 years, and we lived together for a good portion of that, 4 maybe. And there were ups and downs and stuff like that, but I broke up with her on New Year's Eve. It's terrible, but I did. And this was a woman that I thought was like a soulmate, twin flame, forever kind of person, whatever label you want to insert in there. That's the belief that I had going in, and it wasn't going out, right? Because what I had started with wasn't what I had ended with. And it's also because what I had started with, I didn't have all 4 of those. But basically, just forwarding to the end of it, the physical, it wasn't there anymore, right? I didn't feel the same attraction. So the sex life took a dip, right? Didn't really involve myself with that too much, so, which is rare for me, because I'm actually a pervert. Second thing, the mental. The mental was there. We had a lot of the same perspectives and agreed about a lot of the same things. There were perspectives maybe that, like, we could never really kind of get together on, and that's fine. Not everybody's going to agree on the same thing, but there was a fundamental mental difference there that I think we were never quite on the same page. Something was always like just behind the other or in front of the other, and it's not about a disagreement about politics or which food tastes better. Those are simple things, and anybody can deal with those, I think, for the most part, if you care about the other person. But it's more of a perspective thing. It's like how she viewed one specific thing influenced the rest of her life, and the way that I viewed that specific thing that influenced the rest of my life, they weren't on the same page, right? So there was a mental and a physical divide that always was there from the beginning, but didn't become abundantly apparent until the end. And the physical thing maybe over time, but the mental thing was certainly always there. And then what we had though was a spiritual and emotional element, right? Um, Emotionally, there was a safety, and I definitely felt supported. And spiritually, there was an awareness that what we were doing was growth, and that we were growing together, and that there was challenges, and that we were becoming something that was stronger and more aligned with the spiritual purpose. You know, this idea that we're deeper than our physical bodies, than our egos, and that we were aligned in this kind of spiritual way. So we valued the deepest parts of life together, and that's a very important thing to have. But you need all four to be happy and grow long term. Okay. We didn't have those things, so the relationship came to an end. And so when you're thinking about your own situation, whether again, friendship or romantic, you have to look at it, I think, in these four different ways, right? Is there a physical attraction? Is it still there? Do you feel like it's waned away, right? So if it's time to break up, then the physical element, it's not really there anymore. The passion isn't really there. The energy isn't really the same. You don't feel the same pull, right? That's gone. Okay, fine. Sometimes it's not your fault. Sometimes, well, I don't mean that it's ever your fault, but sometimes there's nothing you can do about it, right? Just the way that it is. Sometimes people gain weight and what, okay, et cetera, et cetera. But ultimately, there is going to be an energy that just kind of goes away, dissipates, right? It doesn't necessarily have to do with the physical, physical appearance, okay? Second, right, the mental. If you feel like there's more arguments, like there's more not being on the same page, like you're not being able to agree about things, you can't see things the same way, then you've lost the mental edge, right? You've lost that perspective. You've lost the ability to meet the challenges, to be fair, to have that kind of sense of justice, right? Emotionally, if you don't feel supported, if you don't feel safe, if you don't feel a pull, if you don't feel the flow, if you don't feel that, right? Again, it's time to kind of maybe let go of that, something to examine, something to evaluate. If you don't feel that strong pull, that emotional connection, that feeling of being in love, okay, again, it's not like every relationship or every day is supposed to be this magical, wonderful land of gumdrops and candy cane, candy canes. It's not meant to be like that. No one's suggesting a fantasy. I'm not suggesting a fantasy, but it's not too much to ask that you feel supported and feel safe and feel like there is a purpose to the relationship, which leads into the whole spiritual element. If you feel like there's no growth, if you feel like there's no purpose, if it feels like you two aren't connecting at the deepest level anymore, or that you never might have been, then what are you staying in it for? Because the point of a relationship to me should be to have a partner that can reflect back what's in your heart. Just like for me, the spiritual awakening is the understanding of the deepest parts of yourself. So to have a spiritual perspective at all means to understand things on a deeper level. When things happen, you try to find deeper meaning. So in a relationship, you want something with depth. I do anyway. You want something with depth. You want something that matters. You want something that can grow, that challenges you, that makes you feel alive. Again, it doesn't have to be an everyday thing, but it should make you feel like you're on the right track, like you're going somewhere together. And with my relationship, again, all those things started to kind of go away by the end of it. But we always had at least two at the start, but those two things, they went away. And it's a tough thing to make a call. I mean, you don't really need all four to decide to break up. But even when you don't have all four, it's very tough to leave something that you've been in for a long time. It's safer to stay in a relationship that makes you unhappy because you can predict where it's going to go. You kind of understand what's happening. It's much harder to leave and then just exist by yourself again. It's a very hard thing to do. It's people that have been in relationships for 6 years, 8 years, 9 years, 10 years, 12 years, 15 years, so on and so on and so on, right? It's very hard to kind of, leave something like that. It's very difficult because you accumulate some level of safety, right? But the challenge is, of course, how much do you want to get out of life, right? If you don't really need that much out of life and you don't care and you're just kind of waiting to die or whatever, then you just stay and do whatever you want, I suppose. But if you're like me and you would like to experience something deeper and you want to find the more intense, sort of more honest stuff in life, it requires challenges, requires patience, but it requires taking chances, right? It requires you kind of being willing to move along from situations that hurt you. And again, Even an example that has nothing to do with love, drugs. Okay, I used to do cocaine. My advice for you, by the way, about cocaine, don't do it because it's so fun, so much fun. Don't do it if you can. Try not to. But I did it for a year or so, maybe more. I can't remember. It's the thing about cocaine and drugs, your memory is not quite what it used to be. But I did do it. It was fun, and then it wasn't. So at the start, you had the physical element. Ooh, I'm alive. Like, it hasn't really depleted all your chemicals in your brain and your dopamine yet, so you're having fun. It's working. Right? Emotionally, it's not damaging you, so you feel like you're having fun. So it's a good thing. Mentally, like, I guess in this sense, I didn't have a problem with it. I didn't have an argument against it. And then spiritually, of course, I didn't care. So I wasn't connected as deeply as I am now. So I was just doing something that was terrible. And then, of course, after a year, all those four things went away, right? Physically, it didn't work anymore. It was also damaging my body, heart palpitations, stuff like that. Emotionally, right? It was making me unhappy. I was depressed, okay? Spiritually, it's just damaging the very core of myself to do such a thing. And mentally, of course, I was just I was over it. I didn't want to do it anymore, but I was still addicted, right? And then they all went away. And then, again, once all four of those things aligned, where I knew I didn't have any of them anymore, then I just quit overnight. It was done, right? And so with any other situations in your life, in my life, I find that when those four things have not been completed in the cycle, when you haven't are not fully aware that all four of those things are gone, then you still stay in things that hurt you, whether it's a drug like marijuana or something a little bit lesser drug than cocaine, I would say. Friendships, jobs, right? If you might feel unhappy in some senses, but until all four of those things become kind of aware to you, you kind of stay in those situations, right? So yeah, there's a lot of little practical things you can look at, but ultimately it's those four things. Like if you feel like there's not a physical connection left, there's not an emotional, there's not a spiritual, there's not a mental, then you have all four of those. You don't really need any other small little tiny evidences. You don't need to think about the time that they didn't put the dishes away, or how you just can't agree on what's funny or whatever, all those things add up, but it's the four broader terms that you have to look at, and from there trickle down, right? Because it's all about lessons. So going back to the beginning of this video, 3 women, right? Now, it makes me sound like a terrible playboy, but I promise you that really wasn't the intention. I just happened to meet them all kind of at the same time and see what was going to happen, because there is somebody in my life, but I'm not really going to discuss that openly with people. I'm just going to keep that kind of for myself and see where that goes. But I'm not going to put my life on hold and just assume that person will ever choose me. So I just open myself up and kind of see what happens. And so basically just 3 women. One of them, very beautiful, much more beautiful than me, and just boring, no personality, couldn't laugh. And it's just one of those little lessons. So I realized, well, I'm not going to be with a woman that I can't laugh with. There's no point. So didn't push that aside, let that go, right? Second one needed a spiritual coach to talk to me or something. I didn't like that. That was weird. Spiritual as I am, I do feel like you should be able to make your own decisions and to communicate those decisions. So that I felt like was just a weird sort of thing. So I didn't want to be part of that. And then, of course, the third one was way overly emotionally invested, and we weren't really on the same page mentally with a lot of things as well. There's a physical connection and a bit of an emotional, but there wasn't a mental and a spiritual, right? And so you just have like all these little lessons and all these little elements, and all in one day, it was just like, I'm okay. And then one of them had a problem with arguments, and then that one was lost. And then I just thought, why not just, end the other one just for fun, just to make it an, 3, good number 3. So, not something to be proud of necessarily, but it does illustrate this point that once you're aware of these kind of 4 elements, you can kind of clearly see when they don't line up, right? And so it was never going to work with any of those women because they just didn't have all 4 of those elements. And the person that I do feel I have all 4 of those elements with, it's a complicated situation, and it's not going to resolve itself anytime today. So there's no point in really dwelling on those things. But when it comes to letting things go that it's time to let go of, and you look at those 4 elements, you have your answer. It might not be an easy answer, it might not be the answer that you want, but you do have one.